Hello everybody, welcome to the Retronauts PRGE 2018 live show. Yes, it's Sunday at 3:30. You've all had time to work through your hangovers. Some of you are sleepy. Hopefully this will be weird enough to keep all of you awake until it's time to go home. I am one of your hosts for this, Bob Mackey. Who's here with me today?
I'm Jeremy Parish, also known as Sha-Na-Na Lover 23.
Oh, who's your favorite Sha-Na-Na-er? Can you name one of them?
It has to be Bowser. I like the way they say Sha-Na-Na-Na at the end of the Family Ties theme.
Is that them? Okay, wow. Well, we'll find out at the end of the show. Somebody's suggesting that Jeremy change his Twitter handle to Sha-Na-Na Lover, and I think he would ruin his career. So who else is here?
Gary Butterfield of Watch Out for Fireballs. My favorite member of Sha-Na-Na is Bowser, and I'm really big into Bowserette right now, who is the female gender swap version of the guy from Sha-Na-Na.
So it's not Bowser, right?
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
There's a whole band, She-Na-Na.
Yes.
And who do we have on the end there?
Cole Ross from Watch Out for Fireballs.
Yes, and today's topic is going to be full motion video games. And so I went into this topic thinking we get to watch a lot of the fun 90s stuff like Night Trap and Double Switch, if that's the name of the game, with Corey Haim in it. Games like that. But in doing research for this, I learned there's a lot of games that I've never heard of, and most of them are anime. So this is a chance to let me make all of you watch anime in this room with me. I make this a mandatory anime club. I'm the president of this anime club. But before I begin, I want to ask you guys on the panel here, what jumps into your mind when you think of full motion video games?
So I think of the great 90s conundrum. Do I pay $60 for this on Sega CD or see it for free on public access TV?
That is very true.
For me, definitely Phantasmagoria, Sierra mid-90s B-movie trash games.
And they were famous for their flesh puzzles.
Yeah, they're the best flesh puzzles in the business.
They broke the mold with those flesh puzzles. And what else, Cole? What do you think of when you think of full motion video games?
I think of production values that are so low and talent that is so unknown that they can afford to do just completely bonkers stuff.
It's true, and yes, so I'm going to define full motion video games for this panel as experiences that creatively and often uncreatively stitch together pre-recorded video segments while giving players the most basic sense of agency. Though a few of the games we'll see today have sort of game-like elements layered on top of video, and they're very strange, that would not be the dominant form of the full motion video game. But they really rose to prominence during the early 80s. And had a brief resurgence 10 years later. I think that will be next year's panel, the home console full motion video game era. But today, it's really about arcades and what was caused by the Dragon's Lair boom. And I want to say, so I can't go through this panel without causing some controversy. There are still full motion video games today, and they're made by one guy. His name is David Cage.
I hate the way you talk about that guy. David Khan.
Oh, that's right. He's named after. Yeah, he named himself after a Mortal Kombat character. That's how you know he's serious about art. Yes. But we have to pretend his games are important because they take themselves very seriously and they cost a lot of money. But maybe in like 3 years we'll do Heavy Rain or something like that. And, but yes, but
I've been talking for a couple of years about me and you doing a podcast called Cage Match. You just have to go through the games, and that's it. That's the concept. There's no commentary. It's not analytical. It's just like, what if two guys had a bad time for probably about, I don't know, 30 hours.
So in this scenario, did I commit some sort of crime first? Okay.
Just to bring us closer together as friends.
Okay, wow. I think we would kill each other, but so this panel is really just an excuse to show you weird clips, and hopefully I found some of the weirder clips and things you didn't know about. I didn't know about half of these. And one of our first games is a Wild Gunman, and not the one you're thinking of. It is Nintendo. Nintendo made this in the 1970s, and through my research, I learned secretly that Nintendo invented the full motion video game before completely backing away from it.
So I'm going to step up to bat for Nintendo here and get some history.
Oh.
This was an act of desperation for Nintendo.
That's true.
So there was a huge fad in Japan in the 60s of bowling. People loved bowling, so they created these huge bowling alleys. And the way fads work in Japan is they're like super huge for a while and then they just disappear. So all of a sudden in Tokyo and Kyoto and all these places where real estate was really expensive, you had these huge empty bowling alleys. And Nintendo said, what can we do with these big empty spaces? So they created something called the laser clay shooting system, where clay targets were projected in motion on a wall, and people could use light guns to shoot the clay targets. And this is pretty much like the predecessor of the zapper system that you saw on the NES. But unfortunately, Nintendo didn't account for the fact that the OPEC crisis, the oil crisis, was going to happen in the mid-70s, and all of a sudden the cost of oil shot way up, and that was especially bad in Japan, which is a country that does not have its own oil. And so oil imports became incredibly expensive, and all of a sudden these huge, elaborate plastic systems that Nintendo had manufactured, no one wanted them because no one could afford them, and they became extremely expensive. So the economy collapsed, and Nintendo was like, holy crap, we're going to go out of business. So they took their light gun technology and made little tiny portable cabinets, relatively small, like arcade machine sized. And that's where Wild Gunman came from. It was them basically doing a desperation move to get out of bankruptcy.
It's true, this is one of many games for what they call the simulation system, and it used 16mm film and a gun peripheral, and I think the problem was for a lot of these games is that you had to be in a dark enough room for the game to work, for it to function, for you to see the film. And I like this because it's extremely creepy. If you only look at the footage for this game, it kind of looks like a snuff film. There's no music, it's just a series of men being murdered.
Well, it's murdering you and leering at your corpse.
Yeah, murdering you. So it's like there's quite a few cowboy games in the full motion video genre. I don't know what's happening here, but if you want to check out this video, I think it outdoes Red Dead Redemption 2. So here's Wild Gunman, and I got a little bit of it. It's
After the eyes flash on the screen, shoot. Put your pistol in the holster and prepare to draw.
Just a grim you won sentence over nothing. It really is. It really is. Oh my gosh. Nintendo invented Dark Souls too?
I would say that makes the Wild Gunman that I know look like Mild Gunman. I've had that in the pocket for about 90 seconds. I'm just letting everybody know in full disclosure.
This is not a baby's game like in Back to the Future 2.
Absolutely.
This is a game for men.
That footage, it looks like a glimpse into the hell dimension that all the Marlboro men went to and got trapped in after they died.
Cigarette hell.
Well, the secret truth of Wild Gunman is all the men you shot die 8 days later after just a horrible period of suffering. But that was the Old West. It's very fun. Yes.
And despite the video quality, this was the 1970s, not the 1870s.
Yes. I think Nintendo just found a bunch of old snuff films and decided to make the most of it. But actually, one of the things that almost came out of this simulation system was, this was in the book, one of those, is it Pixel that does the Nintendo history stuff?
So, yeah.
Yeah, they're really good. And I found out that they had an internally released but never externally released demo called Fascination, using this 60mm system, and in that game, you shot the clothes off of a dancing woman. And it was quite popular internally at Nintendo. The 70s were wild, folks.
They also invented Gal's Panic.
Yes.
It was like Chiller, that crazy arcade game.
Yes, but a little less about dismemberment.
Yeah.
And more fun, stripping. But yes, actually, Gal's Panic 2 is at Quarter World, guys, if you want to make the trip out there. It's really great. So the next game on our list, it jumps all the way to 1982. And in doing research for this, I learned that this is the game that really set the full motion video genre on fire. When this was shown off at a convention, everyone got the idea. And it's commonly cited as the first Laserdisc game, but it made it to America after Dragon's Lair release. And we'll get to Dragon's Lair soon, but so this game, I believe it's by Sega. Yes, it is by Sega. It uses footage from various American and Japanese sci-fi productions, including The Wrath of Khan, and some bad Roger Corman movie. I assume they maybe licensed Roger Corman movie footage, but not Star Trek 2.
Yeah, I mean, the Star Trek 2 footage is the CG Genesis effect thing.
Okay.
So it's just like, here's some computer rocks. You don't see like Mr. Spock or something. That would be, I think maybe a little
murder him.
You have to shoot down Spock's space coffin?
At the end of the game, you have to shoot Spock as he's dying in the warp reactor.
This, I only got a short clip up because it's very hard to watch and listen to, and the effect is not very convincing. There's no music. Only later would they add music to these full motion video games, but if you go back to 1982 and think of what games were back then, you could see how this would really blow people's minds, this entire idea, because it does look pretty cool if you're used to things like Galaga, Space Invaders, and things like that. So this would be the less common approach to full motion video games, in which there is a game thing layered on top of video. Most of the full motion video games we're looking at today are just video segments stitched together for the illusion of a game. But here is Astron Belts, and I guess this might hurt your ears a bit. So basically, if you move a Millennium Falcon toy up and down in front of Star Wars footage, it's the same effect.
Wait, it's funny, you can see how they're saving money because the explosion is independent of what you hit. Like 4 ships will come at you, no matter which one you hit, an explosion is centered on the center of the screen and covers the entire screen.
Yeah, for a little extra historic context on this, I'm pretty sure that what Sega did was take the game Zoom 909, which was also released here as Buck Rogers' Planet of Zoom, and basically like take out a bunch of the game, like computer-generated backgrounds, and basically replace it with FMV. But this, like the ship and the play mechanics, especially further into the video that you don't see here, are pretty much like them taking a game that they had already created in arcades and basically saying, what if we took this and then just, replace the backgrounds with really crappy video that's hard to see? And that's what you get.
As chintzy as that is, I mean, if there's gameplay in that, it is not do as you're told or die, which is what FMV games we're going to see.
Yeah. Only one of the other games we're talking about today has that sort of game on top of video, and I think the next one works even better because the enemies are also part of the game. They're not just clips. You're not fighting stock footage.
There were a few games like this on Sega CD. Stillfeed was one of them.
Yeah.
It was like a top-down shooter, and it's a scrolling, like pre-rendered background, and you're playing over top of that.
But the enemies in that are game elements too, right? Yeah.
Well, I thought there were some game element enemies later in the video. I'm getting a little fuzzy because these are all bad.
Yeah.
Traumatizing.
They all run together, but they're worth watching 20 seconds at a time. But here we are next at Dragon's Lair. So technically Astron Belt was first, but Dragon's Lair is really what kicked off the boom in America and in American arcades. So this was an arcade mega hit. It defined the general design of the full motion video game genre, how they would play. But instead of sticking a sprite on top of stolen footage, it's a game comprised entirely of original footage from disgruntled Disney animators. And Don Bluth was the main guy behind this. He broke off from Disney, I believe, after The Fox and the Hound in that early 80s period. And in the 80s, he had credibility. That wouldn't be so true in the 90s. He kind of went out with a bang with Anastasia, but the 90s was also things like Rockadoodle. He wishes he did the Page Master. He did do the Page Master.
He's in Cool World, right? So he's one half.
No, that was Backstreet.
Yes.
Those guys confused.
Incredibly
Those
boring.
guys confused.
Because they're both like just Cole said, they're both
It's like
incredibly
church
boring.
dad and Steve's uncle.
I don't know, man. There's a lot of
Don Bluth is a very nice man. But yes.
Bob, you're pronouncing the game wrong. It's actually pronounced Dragon's Lair. Say it like that.
I'll let this guy say it. How about that? So this is the attract screen for Dragon's Lair. It's very cool, and I captured the whole thing.
Dragon's Lair, a fantasy adventure where you become a valiant knight on a quest to rescue the fair princess from the clutches of an evil dragon. You control the actions of a daring adventurer finding his way through the castle of a dark wizard who has exploited with treacherous monsters and obstacles. In the mysterious caverns below the castle, your odyssey continues against the awesome forces that oppose your efforts to reach the Dragon's Lair. Lead on, adventurer. Your quest awaits.
So that was Dragon's Lair, and I don't think these people ever saw Wild Gunman or anything like that, but it does borrow some of the ideas from that game in that you see a flashing element on the screen, and through that you have to decide what input you are supposed to hit, up, down, left, right, or an action button. And yes, the indications are not like later QTEs would be where it would tell you what button to hit. You'd have to decide and decipher through just, you know, the general context of what was happening on the screen. And Jeremy, you lived through this era of the arcades. I was but a mere babe.
Let me tell you about the old days.
Was this really a phenomenon?
Yeah, it really was. This game was pretty ubiquitous. Like any arcade you went to had one, and you knew it was there because it would not shut up. They had that track mode running constantly at like top volume. So anywhere you were in the building, you could hear a guy telling you about Dragon's Lair and how you could become Dirk the Daring. But people would line up to play it, put in their 50 cents or $1. It was really expensive. Play for like 2 minutes and die and never play again. But
yes,
for those like for like the first month or two that it was out, everyone wanted to play it because it was really cool. And then everyone realized, oh, there's not really that much game here. Let's go play Galaga.
It was the first arcade game to cost 50 cents.
It's an exceedingly bad game, but as a video game, like it's beautiful. But one of the things I really like about Dragon's Lair is that once there are home versions of it and porters are no longer part of it, you get to watch this really coolly animated, beautiful cartoon because there's no economic pressure. And it becomes kind of one of the early games, I think, that the ways that you die is a draw, kind of like Mac Ventures. Like, seeing all the different death animations is just kind of fun, and if that doesn't cost you money, that's something you can actually pursue. I know what to do here, but what happens if I don't?
Yeah. And you're talking about the home versions, like we have it on phones now and things like that. You can get a full fidelity
play
version.
$1 and actually play through the game for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I mean, this was a game that was released on DVD players, not like Nuon, but just DVD players, and you could play with the remote because it's such a simple game.
The entire game is an animated menu.
Yeah, basically. But the early attempts to bring this and Space Ace home are a special kind of miserable.
Oh, the NES.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Make that a Game Boy version of this game.
They made them into just bad platformers, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't seem like enough words to describe how bad they are.
No, we don't have enough time for that.
Yeah.
But the Game Boy Color one was just a port, right? It
used Game Boy Color, Game Boy.
Game Boy, okay.
Black and white Game Boy.
Well, I know they made a Game Boy Color one that was mysteriously they somehow made the full motion video work.
Yeah, they compressed it down to hell.
Yes, it was like a bad GIF. But yes, so we won't be talking about the other Doll Booth games, but there are Space Ace and Dragon's Lair 2. Surprisingly, Dragon's Lair 2 was 91. I had no idea it was so late. I guess they were trying to bring it back for the 90s and the great CD-ROM boom era. But yeah, Dragon's Lair, I guess the one thing you can say about these games is that they are unfair, but you can memorize like how to win. In Dragon's Lair, at least, and then some other games that borrow from this, they would often, so the challenges come to you in random order, and they often will do mirror versions, so we'll reverse the film, and the inputs will be the opposite of what they normally are. So that is Dragon's Lair.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that as much as these games are terrible, like in terms of the technical prowess, the Bluth games, like no one touched those. They were so beautifully, so beautifully created and rendered.
Yes, they are very expensive, and we should talk about like the technology behind these games. Laserdisc, these arcade units really just chew through Laserdisc players because they always had to like access different parts on the disc all the time. So yes, they were very expensive, which is why these games cost 50 cents to play, which is, I guess, $43 today. In 2018 money.
Reagan quarters were very valuable.
So now we're finally getting into anime. We have Cliffhanger. So
finally.
Americans had no idea they were watching a Hayao Miyazaki movie. They were playing a Hayao Miyazaki movie in 1983, and in case you don't know what Cliffhanger is, it basically makes a video game out of the Lupin III movie, Castle Cagliostro. And it also mixes in footage from The Mystery of Mamo, and it's licensed with permission. TMS's copyright is on the screen. And I'll play the attract mode to show you how they mangle it.
Cliffhanger, a game that keeps you on the edge of your toes. By controlling the joystick and the action button, you determine the fate of Cliff, a lovable outcast in his quest to rescue one beautiful, breathtaking lady. But one mistake, and you've blown it. Will Count Draco strike the first blow? Will the princess be forced to marry someone she can't stand? Will Cliff get stuck in a trap door? Or will our inventive international hero leap to the rescue, only to be caught hanging around again? Whether Cliff continues his fight to give hope to the helpless is in your hands. Good luck.
My name's Bob Kowalski, I made that anime. Yes, thank you, Bob Kowalski. Cliffhanger, I don't have any footage of the game, but it's very odd in that, so they can't make any new animation and they can't overlay anything, so you're just watching Castle of Cagliostro and you're hearing beeps, and you have to hit an input when you hear one of those beeps, the right inputs, and it's all very strange, and I'm wondering if this is why Miyazaki hates video games.
Miyazaki hates video games because someone made a Nausicaa game for a Japanese computer that involved Nausicaa flying around in her MEV, the glider, shooting the bugs, which is like the exact opposite of what that story is actually about. And he saw that and was like, never again.
And this game, this game has an up, down, left, right button, also a hands button and a feet button.
It's like Assassin's Creed.
Yes. But again, this is not a great game, and this is just using borrowed footage with permission, but I think it's kind of cool that Americans didn't know what they were being treated to. This movie would not be available in, I think it had a small release in theaters in '91, and the first home release was '92, and only in the late '90s was it widely released.
So I've actually very recently done some research into Lupin, like its early localization. And from what I understand, like there was already a movie that had been translated, maybe it was Mystery of Mamo, that was brought over as Lupin. But it was like super, kind of the Wild West, there was no consistency. So they changed all the character names except Lupin's name, so Goemon became Samurai, which was extremely clever. But apparently, like this game came out as Cliffhanger, and they changed his name to Cliff instead of Lupin. And then there was going to be maybe another, like an actual movie released under the name Cliffhanger, but it never was localized that way. But even Animego, I saw some Laserdiscs on the show floor that are like, the title of the Laserdiscs is Rupin the Third, not Lupin. So
I think there was some
lost like the whole, you know, Arsène Lupin wolf thing.
I think there was like a copyright issue, like sort of how there's some weird fuzziness with Sherlock Holmes, but they've obviously gotten over it now.
Yeah, apparently.
But yes, so that was Cliffhanger, and yeah, really cool that that was a game. A terrible game, Bob Kowalski, shame on you. But now let's move on to some more fun stuff. So we have Us versus Them. I've never heard of this until today. It is very much patterned after Astron Belt, the game we saw earlier today, with the game elements layered over full motion video footage, except this time the enemies are also part of the game elements. It's not just, you know, you're not just shooting at stock footage of ships. And it's very cheesy, and I think it really leans into how low budget it is. And I would say it has all the budget of a Kids in the Hall sketch. So you'll see what I mean in a second here.
In the skies of every nation on the planet, a fierce battle is about to begin. A ruthless alien fleet plans to conquer the Earth. Their purpose, to make it their home. Their only obstacle, us. The pilots of these experimental fighter planes and the ground personnel at Air Command Headquarters are unaware of the approaching menace.
Captain Tracy, the fighters are in the air, ready for their final test phase.
Good. Okay, pilots, this is Big Daddy. Let's ring those babies on.
This is Big Red.
Mellow yellow, check it in.
Brooks over here.
Sky blue, check. White night, Big Daddy.
Hey, Green. Hey, Green, come here.
I think the war room was also the utility room in this game. But yes.
Thank you for having us on this panel. Yeah, that's a miracle.
Is this amazing? So who in this room, show of hands or show of claps, who has ever heard of this game? I've only discovered it yesterday. One guy. Wow. Very brave of you, sir. But yes, the action is sort of, it looks like Space Harrier a bit, in which the camera's behind the ship. Occasionally it will be to the side. Mostly it's behind the ship. And it is very much patterned after the Astron Belt, you know, formula, but this would not be the common full motion video formula.
Yeah, the way it kind of intercuts between the live action footage in the control room and the computer generated ships makes me think of Thunderbirds almost. Except like with bad AV graphics instead of mirror-animation, whatever that was called.
I think puppets would have been more convincing than these actors in this scene, but
They're just kind of saying the names of colors. Like, I can hear the audio.
No,
It's like a challenge to see.
White, sky blue chip, that's a whole lot of chips right there in one name.
How many colors do you remember, Five Guys? Like, they got 4.
Did they play Voltron at some point?
there's no Voltron. I think it's all about the Green Ranger, this whole game, but yes. We have to move on though. So when Japan found out about Dragon's Lair, and the next year there were 2 major ripoffs. The first one is Super Don Quixote, very faithful to the literature, the famous classic piece of literature. Sancho Panza is in it. But both of these games we're going to look at next, they each star a blonde guy with a sword, inexplicably, even though some of them go into space. And unlike Dragon's Lair, it has more of a budget of a TV anime of its time. And it's way less elegant than Dragon's Lair in that the desired input is explicitly flashed on the screen instead of just, them lighting up elements in the animation. But I have the attract modes for both Super Don Quixote and the very easy to say Esches Esches? I'm reading this off my phone. Esches Arnamilla. There we go. Well, some guy will say it.
Do you need to bite down on my wallet?
I'm smelling some toast over here, but
we should make sure Terry Gilliam is in the audience before we play this, because this will be a bullet directly to his heart.
Oh God, okay.
They got to make it.
So yes, here is Super Don Quixote, the universal ripoff of Dragon's Lair.
Super Don Quixote.
Yes, it has Skellington's Disney ripoffs and racial insensitivity. So that's Super Don Quixote.
The villain's name is Windmill Sama, right?
Windmill Sama? I think so. I didn't get the chance to play Super Don Quixote, but yes, this is like a lot more like your modern QTE games, like Shenmue and things like that, in which it'll just have what input it wants from you on the screen overlaid on top of the animation. It's not actually part of the animation itself. And this was the only game, several were planned for Universal System 1 cabinet. I guess this didn't take off, I don't know why. And these are very expensive machines to maintain, so if they can't make enough with one, we were at least spared a Mr. Do anime arcade machine. I think that's good for all of us. And Universal, yes, they did not know what they were doing. Any other comments on this? I do want to move on to Esches Arnamilla. It has a better attract mode.
Do you know how they handled death in Super Don Quixote?
They were also, with this one in Esches, they would cut away to like a pre-made little cartoony death scene. I think it was out of the context of the actual what was happening on the screen,
Yeah,
but this is Esches Arnamilla.
Auranmilla, a gigantic artificial planet treasured by Esh, the wicked emperor of the Perseus universe. The wicked-hearted Esh has launched a diabolical operation to conquer our universe, Orion. Shock troops led by Orishalla launched a surprise attack on the shuttle base of Orion and have taken Princess Cindy prisoner. We must rescue the princess. Join us in the battle to defend our Orion universe.
Very catchy title.
Don Davis, the hero of the game.
So, in Dragon's Lair, it's Dirk the Daring. Here we have Don Davis.
Cindy, the captured princess. Emperor Esh, a diabolical, evil little man. Orishalla, enigmatic but wicked beauty.
When you move the lever
Okay, I want you guys to pay attention to how directly translated these instructions are.
in the direction of the signal, Don Davis continues the fight. If you move it the wrong way, Don will be caught in the trap. In the middle of a dangerous situation, push the escape button at precisely the right time, and Don Davis will be saved. If your timing is off, poor Don will die a hideous death.
So make sure you hit the continue the fight button, not the fall into the trap button. Very important for Esches Arnamilla.
I like how when he dies, he turns into a horse angel.
That is a horrible death, as the narrator said. The narrator. But yes, we have to move on to Badlands, another anime full motion video game. And this is basically a more advanced version of Wild Gunman, and that is really just a quick draw game, although I did include some gameplay footage to show you how they are trying to be innovative with this format, in that in the footage, there is a reticle in animation moving on the screen. You have to fire when it's lined up with the enemy. And this came out in 1984, which is a big year for gun games. There's Duck Hunt, there's Wild Gunman. the Sprite version that you might know better than the one we saw earlier, and Hogan's Alley, but we have to check out Badlands next, and I love the setup for this game. It's from a period of time when Konami thought K and J were the same letter, too.
Badlands. We were living a quiet life when one day, for no reason, my wife and my children were killed in cold blood, and I was wounded, unable to help. Why this? Why us? Why? I won't let them get away with it. I'll get every last one of them.
So here's some gameplay coming up here.
Hey, wait, what? It's a...
Like I sound like I'm being interrupted, not shots.
I'm sorry.
So here's the main creator with the video. You see the reticles moving around in animation. You have to line it up. You have to fire on slide the enemy.
You found me.
So very cool, and that is Badlands. And we got to move, we got a little faster here. So Road Blaster is one of my favorite full motion video games. It is so cool, and it is so anime, and it is so expensive. I just love to watch it. Just literally watch a full playthrough of this on YouTube, I encourage you. So if you're a big anime head like me, the animation was directed by Yoshinobu Inano, who played a major role in some high-profile anime like Char's Counterattack, Transformers the movie, which is not a fun movie, but the animation's really good. And Macross, Do You Remember Love, and more. And it's even better looking than Dragon's Lair, perhaps the best looking full motion video game in this entire presentation, because everything is constantly moving. It's animating things in first person via the hood of a car. And very interesting, it's actually designed by Yoshihisa Kishimoto, who created Double Dragon and Kunio-kun. And if you look at the beginning of Double Dragon in the arcade, in the Lee's garage, the car for Road Blasters is there. It's present there. Just a little homage, shout out to Road Blasters. And let's watch the 8-track screen. The 8-track screen is sort of like just an anime opening, but I love how good it looks. This will encourage all of you to go out and just watch a full playthrough of Road Blaster. And I think it was later released as Road Avenger because there's an entire game called Road Blasters. And there was some confusion there, but check it out. It's Road Blaster time. The entire game looks like this from this point on. The entire actual gameplay element of Road Blaster.
Hi, how are you guys out there? Yeah, this is Radio TATA with the hottest hits today. Bright and sunny out there. You all having fun? You all know about the gangs busting up the city. Geez, I wish someone would blast them. Hey, here's some good news for you. You've all seen that red supercar running around. Yeah, that's the one. He's our man. Yep, he's blasting them sky high. Hey, red supercar, can you hear me out there? The gangs are running wild again. Hurry, man, we need you. We need you fast.
So gorgeous, yes. So if you know anything about just how animation is made, like every drawing, every second of that is like 24 drawings or 12 drawings, just like they have everything in the background, everything moving past the car. It's so gorgeous. I don't know how they're able to make that. I don't know how expensive it was, but it's beautiful.
I think it's really refreshing to see an FMV game where the protagonist is spurred to action because something terrible happens to a woman. It's about time we finally see one of those.
The fridging has begun.
Bob, do you know if the radio that's in the attract mode plays when you play the game?
I watched the playthrough, and I don't know if the DJ is just constantly talking about you throughout the game.
That would be amazing, though, because it's really early on, like for having a diegetic radio station where they comment on the actions of the player.
He was the DJ Atomica of his time.
Yeah, it's extremely early on. That's like a really neat early example of that.
Well, also it was like Radio TATA, so Radio Tata. Like,
yeah.
what?
Ooh. Boy, well speaking of tatas, time for a little something for daddy. So full motion video games are getting sexy now, folks. Anime babe sexy, that is. So that's a certain flavor of sexy. So this is Time Gal from 1985. Are we familiar with Time Gal? I hear people clapping for Time Gal.
It's out there on the show floor.
Yes.
People have it for sale.
I did see that. You can buy Time Gal, bring her home. But yes, this one is it's really cute. It's very neat. It stars a character we should point out legally distinct from Yurusei Yatsura's Lum, and I believe Jeremy in the notes he pointed out that it's also a rip on Dirty Pair as
She
well.
is absolutely Yuri and Kay smashed together into one woman packing a pistol.
The perfect woman. And so this is very much like Dragon Slayer in that elements on the screen will flash. There's often cues via words, and at a certain point in the time scene, you'll be asked to make a multiple choice between different options. And this one is just the one. This is just one of the one for elements of the game, in that you kind of have to know which choice to make when you're going into it. But I like this game a lot because there's so many different settings. Like there's like, I don't know, maybe 20 to 25 different 60 to 90 second set pieces. And the thing that's in common with all of these is no matter where she goes, everyone is trying to kill Time Gal.
So this actually leads to something really interesting about this game, which is that, as in so many of these FMV games, when your character dies, you get some sort of rendered illustration of the character dying. But I guess because the idea of just like a woman being murdered repeatedly because of your incompetence was kind of distasteful, they turn her into like this super cute, mini deformed version of herself every time she dies. So it's this kind of weird disconnect between like a fairly serious sci-fi looking anime character, and then she dies and she's like a little baby doll.
I get less upset when cute things die.
Yeah. Well, video games hadn't evolved to the point where we are now, where Lara Croft gets murdered recently every time you mess up.
I want a mod that changes Tomb Raider like that. But yes, I clipped a few scenes of Time Gal out, some of the more fun scenes, and one is very Halloween themed. One is her landing, I think, in the middle of Desert Storm. We'll figure it out. So 66680. So the next one we'll have one of those time stop moments, and this is her.
Did you travel to the time where that thing exists?
This is all historically accurate.
That's dealing with tanks the same way you do a gigantic Grim Reaper.
That's how we won the war, people. Thank you for your service. So the finale is going to be extra spooky because it is one of the worst consoles ever. Does anybody out there know about the Action Max? Yeah, thankfully nobody cheered. So this was a console in huge scare quotes that you also needed to have a VCR to play, VCRs being the style at the time. And you might be asking me, Bob, how does a video game work using only VHS tapes? And the answer is it doesn't work very well. And you're going to see this in a second. Jeremy, I think you have some historical background on the Action Max.
Not really on the Action Max. I will say that this technology was something that Hasbro tried to explore in the mid-'80s with something called the Nemo, which was going to be, when it was released as the Control Vision, I think. And it was a game system that plugged into a VHS deck. And was going to give you that sort of like, here's, you know, the VHS tape playing stuff, and it was multi-track and could generate, you know, graphics over top of it, kind of like whatever the hell that Sega game was, Astron Bell. And that system, even though it never released, it's where games like Sewer Shark and Night Trap were actually created originally. And so there is kind of like this, you know, like this Action Max was not an original idea, and it was something that had been explored by Hasbro as a serious idea, but then I believe the company president passed away, and he was the only one who really cared about it, so everyone else was like, forget it.
Well, whoever made this took the idea much less seriously, as you're going to see in a second here. But it was, every game was a point-based experience, I guess, on the honor system, and I guess you decided if you won or not. If you have the Action Max, you can't win, but the experience would be the same every time because you're just watching a videotape and the game console is keeping score for you. I guess that sounds fun if you've never had fun before, but only 5 games were released for it, and I believe one of them was packed in with the system. And okay, this could be a cool idea in theory, in some small way, but the immersion is ruined because for the sake of the technology to work, you're going to see in these clips, they have to put a small circle in the bottom corner of the screen, and then anything that's a target needs a circle also on the screen over it. So it's very distracting, it's very stupid looking, and none of these games all have the lowest budget out of everything we're going to see today, especially the last one. But I guess the upside to this is these games are easy to pirate. Technically we're doing it now. So get out your cell phones and record this footage. You can play Action Max for yourself. Any comments on this before I start the footage here?
Captain Power.
Captain Power. I don't know if
they outsourced the game part of that to the peripheral, to the gun. But like that was something where the VHS was the same every time.
And the console.
Different parts on the screen. The console was in the gun.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds more fun.
Yeah, it was on TV. Like you could sit down and like have an episode of Action Power or Captain Power you played.
Okay.
And come home on Fridays and like see how well you did.
That somehow sounds much better than this.
Yeah, and the branding on this product is really interesting to me because if you look at the logo, it uses the same typography that Nintendo used for the NES. So things like the Action set and the NES Max. Like it's gonna. If you saw those packages, you like had those, you know, NES back in the day, you would see this and be like, oh, this is a Nintendo thing. It must be.
I guarantee this product was only sold at Radio Shack for confused grandparents. But so this is our final thing we're doing today, and we're gonna look at 2 games: 38 Ambush Alley. And I believe this is what our modern day police officers use to train. If you watch this, you can see it's very technical. It's sort of like Police Quest. And so here is the intro to 38 Ambush Alley. Again, these games are all on YouTube if you want to play them for yourself. Just put your finger at the screen and decide how many points you win. It's that easy. But here's 38 Ambush Alley. This guy owns.
You did pretty good with these targets. But now, we're gonna give you the toughest test we can outside of putting you on the streets with the real bad guys. It's a little place called
You're right, this is very much a Tim and Eric sketch. Actually, all of the Action Max games are just Tim and Eric sketches prolonged.
Ambush Alley! Let's move it! Ambush Alley. We call it that because you make one bad move, you're the target. And that's just the way out there in them dirty streets once you're real cops, so listen up! I said listen up! And this alley's full of bad guys. If you see one, you better get him, or he'll get you! So you be sure before you shoot! We're gonna be working in pairs, so know where your partner is at all times. Stay out of his line of fire!
And that's 30 Ambush Alley.
Echo would make this remake this game 10 years later as Time Crisis.
Oh, much better, much better. But we're going to end today with perhaps the Mario 64 of the Action Max. A real tour de force. Again, this footage, if you are, if you have a weak constitution, you might want to close your eyes or leave the room. It is, of course, the rescue of Pops Ghostly for the Action Max. And when I was talking about putting together this panel, people requested this specifically, so I had to find it. And I actually saw this footage originally at a found footage festival. I assumed that it was some extremely dark and rare item, but I guess children experienced this, and it was an item designed for them. But yes, I'll let Pops Ghostly explain to you what's happening, and then you'll see a bit of the game. It's really, you're just fighting a series of video effects.
Oh, thank heaven you're here. I'm Pops. Pops Ghostly. And boy, do we need your help.
Oh, are they friendly? Then maybe they can help.
Pops! Pops! I just saw another one! They're even uglier than the guys we saw before! They're everywhere! Everywhere!
You see, it's been like this for generations. We Ghostlies lived here. Then one day these creatures moved in. Warped and horrible creatures. They're terrifying. We've got to get them out of here.
Yeah, but it ain't gonna be easy. There's these ghouls that toss fireballs and...
Gordy!
He's right. This is serious. Take care. They'll come after you, too. We'll try to help you when we can. So please, don't shoot at us.
Yeah, and always remember to...
Again, this could be too intense for some of minutes of that online if you want to watch it. Put it on at a party. Well, number one, I think the Ghostly family is the product of a murder-suicide.
Was that their last name before they died?
What's that?
Was that their last name before they died?
Oh boy.
What a quinky dink.
I don't know what happened there, but this is also Luigi's Mansion VR. So put that on your Google Cardboard. But yes, I'm happy we all survived Pops Ghostly. Again, I want to see just the bar put that on in the background and see what happens. But yes, thank you for attending our Full Motion Video Games panel at PRGE 2018, everybody. This is our 6th year in a row here. We'll be back next year. But before we go, Gary and Cole, you're our special guests today. Can let our friends know where we can find you. We've got some great podcasts.
Thanks. We are roughly the duckfeed.tv podcast network. We do the show probably of most interest to Retronauts listeners is called Watch Out for Fireballs. It's like a book club for games. You can find us at duckfeed.tv. Yeah.
If you like hearing us clown about FMV stuff, that sometimes comes up on our other show, a comedy show about bad games called Abject Suffering as well.
We also did a full 2 hours on FMV masterpiece, non-ironically, Gabriel Knight 2, The Beast Within. So, no, it's good.
I'm sorry, we're up here.
I'm a big Dean Erickson fan. Yeah, I love him.
They have the mic. But yes, we are Retronauts, in case you don't know. Check out our podcast, retronauts.com. It's available wherever you find podcasts. And our Patreon is at patreon.com/retronauts, and that's where you can support the show, get episodes early, and get the ideal listening experience at a higher bitrate with no ads. And I'm also on things like Talking Simpsons and What a Cartoon, but you guys probably know that. But thank you so much for coming out. I really appreciate it. You're sticking around on Sunday, and this was a lot of fun, and we'll see you next year.